Well, thank you for agreeing. I mean, it's great.
Yeah, thank you.
No, but the last one was great. I mean, review was great. I mean, he took it in a direction I didn't expect. That was really cool. Okay, we're
Yeah,
live. Joined this hour by Eric Etzli. Eric is a poet, an author, a venue space creator, somebody that I know has, he's a venue host. He's that title doesn't really do him justice. I mean, we're gonna get more into like into the work with Alivio as the
yeah,
interview continues. But I want to start before that, before Alivio, before the LA Times, before working with the city, before any of those things happen, before
yeah,
writing a book, before any of that, you were someone just hitting up the poetry scene,
yeah,
venue. So let's talk about your stat story. Let's talk about how you started writing poetry and started getting out there, hitting the open mics.
yeah. So basically, I started writing lyrics and poems when I was like in high school. We started like me and a group of friends started like a ska band, and that's kind of how I started like really intentionally writing. Was like lyrics for that band and poems. Um, and then it just evolved, and I started writing poetry on my own. Keep in mind, I had never like shared my poems until I want to say I was a sophomore in college. So I was like around maybe I want to say 20 years old, uh, 21 maybe. So one of my biggest fears, Matt, was always public speaking. Like petrified of public speaking, and like I knew that I eventually wanted to be an educator as well, so I knew I had to get over this fear to like be a teacher and also to share my poetry ever in front of a crowd. So the first time I ever shared poetry was at a space called Speakeasy in well, it was at the last bookstore, but the open mic was called Speakeasy, hosted by Ariana Lady Bosco. So I don't know. Have you ever been to that space? Well, it's not there anymore, but
Yeah,
you
yeah.
went.
I used to go to Speakeasy at the last bookstore.
Yeah. So that was the first place I ever shared my poetry. I want to say this was like 2000. I don't know. Actually, my years are really off. It might have been like 2012, the first time I ever shared poetry. 2011, 12. Um, I just challenged myself to get over this public speaking fear. And I had all these poems already that I had been writing. I had never shared them. So I looked up open mics on Google, right? First time ever doing that. Open mics, Los Angeles. And I found a list of open mics, and then I kind of dug deeper, and I found out that on that Monday there was going to be an open mic called Speakeasy, and I got the address. This was like back in the days when like MapQuest was a thing, so like I printed out like how to get there, and then I get to downtown LA. It's like 9 p.m. I'm alone. Nobody knows I'm going there. My parents didn't know. I just didn't want to tell anybody because the thought of having friends there was going to freak me out more. And the thought of reading to strangers and making mistakes and falling on my ass is not as scary if it's just complete strangers I might never see again. So that's kind of how it started. And I ended up going to the wrong place because the place I went to was blocked off by these two big old security guards. And I remember having my little stack of poetry poems, and I told them, "Hey, is this Speakeasy?" They're like, "Nah, man, we're filming a movie here." I'm like, "What the hell, a movie?" They're like, "But I have this address for an open mic." They're like, "Oh, sorry, bro, like you're lost." And I was like, "Damn it!" Like I finally mustered up the courage to do this. So I'm walking like aimlessly in downtown LA, not knowing what to do, kind of like bummed out that I didn't get to finally face that fear. And I walk across the street from this big old bookstore called the Last Bookstore. I had never seen it, and I was like, "Oh, it looks cool." So I like went inside the bookstore, and I'm just like looking around, wasting time looking at the books. And then I see to the left of me, there's a microphone on a stage. And I'm like, what the hell? That looks like some type of open mic kind of deal. And then I went up to the person putting up the mic. I'm like, hey, are you guys having an event tonight? He's like, yeah, we're having an open mic. I'm like, really? Tonight? He's like, yeah, it's called Speakeasy. I was like, what do you mean speakeasy's like, yeah, we just started 2 weeks ago right here because we got shut down from our last location 2 weeks ago. So it was like, it was amazing. Like, it was like a miracle. I just ended up in the right place again. And I ended up sharing my poetry for the first time in front of Lady Bosco and like a bunch of strangers. And I just fell in love with like the community of like expression and art and poetry and people's humanity on display. And I just got addicted and I just kept going. Started going to Corazon del Pueblo, Eastside Cafe, started going to Santa Monica, Long Beach, all these other spaces, the Poetry Lounge, and just kept hitting up all these random open mics, man. That's kind of how it started. I just kept going to share. And I was in love with the scene and everybody that was brave enough to share their vulnerability. You know, it was great times.
Yeah. Do you remember what the original was? It like an alley that the original?
Yeah. It looked like it was like an alley, and the bouncers were blocking off like the entrance of the alley. So I was like, "What's going on?" They're like, "We're filming a movie." I was like, "What?" I thought it was an open mic.
There used to be open mics back there. There was like an alley, and you go back there. And I remember that. They used to have it on Art Walk. There used to be some, and I think a woman named Tennille Bender used to host something there. I don't remember the name of it though, but I remember that place. Yeah. And I guess Lady Bosco like started the speakeasy there because it used to be a place where you could do that, but then something happened. A new owner took over. They didn't like it anymore, and then that place ended up closing in a year. So I mean, shit, it shows them.
It's crazy though. If I wouldn't have told myself just walk aimlessly in downtown, you're already here, you're gonna run into something good. If I wouldn't have like told myself do that, I would have probably have never got into that open mic at that time, that place. It was like meant to be. It was awesome.
Right. So at the time you're doing that, you're living in the city of Bell, right?
Yeah, living in the city of Bell on Orchard Avenue by Gage Avenue. Yeah, southeast.
So Bell is what, like 3 to 5 miles away from downtown?
Bell, I want to say
5
like
7.
Yeah, like 5 to 6 miles away from downtown LA.
Yeah, so it's a world away, right?
What's up?
It's a world away though sometimes.
Yeah, like a world away of differences and cultures and just very different spaces, and that kind of leads to other things in like my mind that I wanted to create. But after Speakeasy, started going there a lot religiously. I started going to Corazon del Pueblo, and that place really like ripped my mind open. Like I was like, whoa, like this is not just an open mic, Flowers of Fire, but this is like a space that embodies like take ownership into your own hands, like, you know, by the community, for the community, that grassroots mentality. And that was different from Speakeasy. So Corazon del Pueblo just influenced me in all sorts of different ways as well.
Yeah, can you speak a little bit to like can you expand upon that? Like what specifically about Corazon did you say like, man, I need this is something really, really special?
Yeah, it was just how they were they created a space where the community can become educators of the skills that they already know. Like everybody in our community has different skills, different knowledge of wealth. And Corazon del Pueblo gave everybody in that community the platform to go teach whatever they know. You know, guitar, you know, graphic design, you know how to write poetry, you know how to do sculptures, whatever it is, you know, that craft. If you're down, come and teach it, because this is real education. Like, you know, like, so that space was just showing me that, whoa, like we live in this society where growing up, the only public spaces we're allowed to come in contact with, we must be there. We want to spend our money there or like give them our money. It's a transaction. You want to experience going to Target or to the local fucking Baskin Robbins or whatever it is, you need to take out some money, give them money in order for you to experience that transaction. Like, and Corazon del Pueblo was like donation based. Like if you didn't have funds, you know, arms wide open, people are still there to accept you in. And like you're getting all of these experiences, you're clashing ideas with community members and progressive ideas. And like it was just an incredible space that made me feel like, why don't we have this where we live? Like, why do we not have any open mics, any cultural spaces, any museums, we don't have anything. And that kind of just stayed in my head, like it started like rotting in there, like this bothering me. And that's just how everything started after. Yeah.
So I want to get to Alivio, but before we do that, tell us a little about the Eastside Cafe and what kind of influence that had on you.
Yeah, it was the same, I guess, for me, the same influence as Corazon del Pueblo. It was also community members taking a grassroots kind of approach to the arts and skills. And they also had several events that like I knew they were doing like men's circles and things like that, but Eastside Cafe for me is farther. So I wasn't able to go as much as I wanted to, like Corazon del Pueblo. That one was just more accessible to me. But Eastside Cafe was also incredible. Just like regular people that just gave a damn, that like just wanted to make their communities better. And that all of these ideas, all of these spaces and people, the open mic spaces, the art spaces, these community spaces that were not owned by the city, just influenced me to want to start, you know, my own spaces. Yeah, my own space.
Right. So like, Eastside Cafe is located in El Sereno. Corazon del Pueblo was in Boyle Heights. These areas are traditionally kind of known as like part of the East Side, right? It's not necessarily East LA, but part of the East Side.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of history, a lot of romanticization, a lot of like coinage that goes with the concept of the East Side, right?
Yeah.
Southeast LA, on the other hand, a lot of problems, a lot of oppression, a lot of the exact same problems, right? The police,
Yeah.
that even worse problems when it comes to environmental racism, probably the worst area of the whole city in terms of just being poisoned, right?
Yeah.
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 And yet it doesn't it's not treated with that same kind of like reverence and like, oh my God, this is the blah blah blah. And so in that vacuum, you start Alivio. So can you tell us a little bit about like when you started Alivio, what did it mean to the area and surrounding to everybody, in Bell and Cudahy and Haywood?
Yeah, and real quick before I get into that, the way Alivio started, Eastside Cafe, I hadn't really went there very much. I went like once probably or twice before I started Alivio. Corazon was a space that I went to a lot, but also just Speakeasy. That was like the number one spot. And I remember I was with Lady Bosco one day, like helping her run errands, and I was with her baby, and I remember telling her I want to start a space where I live. Like I wanted to start like a space, and in my mind I was thinking it has to be a public place, like a building like Corazon del Pueblo. But then that brings into effect a bunch of other issues like funding, rent, like lease, like all of these other things. And I was just getting very overwhelmed by all those challenges. And then she's the one that told me, don't you live in a house? And I told her, yeah, I live in a house. She's like, well, why don't you start your open mic there? Why don't you start your space there? And I just looked at her like, what? Like, start at my house? She's like, yeah, don't you have a backyard? I was like, yeah, I have a backyard. She's like, start in your backyard. Do you have a garage? I was like, yeah, I have a garage. That's where you start, in your garage. And I was like, the garage, come, like, really? Like, and I was just like, I have parties at the house all the time. Like we organize big ass fiestas and parties and kickbacks. Like, why can't I organize an open mic for the community? So I was like, you know what? She's right. And then I hit up a few homegirls of mine, Selena, Natalie, Chelly. If they're listening, I always remember all the contributions you helped me make at the first event. Anna too. we ended up, I told my close friend my ideas for the space, and she didn't tell me you're an idiot, you're dumb, that's a crazy idea. She told me, let's do it. Like, I believe in it. And I was like, hell yeah, let's go. So, dude, we put up drywall in my parents' garage. Like, we painted the walls. We just started giving the garage more love because it was like way more destroyed. Um, and then we kind of did it together, me and this group of mujeres. And we didn't know what to call it at first, so we called it Micrófono Libre. Like, it's a funny name that I think about it. But anyways, when we started this, that was in 2012. And the first open mic, that was the only one that was not called Alivio. It was Micrófono Libre. We had like over, like, I want to say easily 60 people like that showed up to the garage. The garage was packed. And I was like shocked. I thought if we can get 15, 20 people here, that'll be a success. But it was overwhelming, the amount of people that showed up to the garage, and like the energy, the ambiance, people like talking about like people power and organizing and like immigration and like all of these politicized narratives that people in our community don't really listen to, like people were being exposed to. And I remember thinking that day, like, I'm gonna have to do something that's more intentional, and really start this open mic up. And like, I was thinking probably doing it on a monthly basis. So after that open mic, I took like 3 months off just to like nurture this idea. And I like thought about 100 names, and then I came up with Alivio, which means relief or healing. Alivio open mic, relief, healing of like, you know, being a day laborer, having to work 40 hours a week, having to be constantly stressed out with like the life of a fucking, in Southeast LA, mostly predominantly immigrants or children of immigrants. So you have families that are constantly overwhelmed, working endless hours at probably like a maquiladora and fucking burning. And like, you know, you need relief, you need healing, like you need to just relax. And like, that's why I called it Alivio. And like, because it sounds good if a white person says it as well. Alivio. It doesn't sound that bad. It sounds good.
Website. Yeah.
So
Bar.
So I was like, all right, let's go with that. And I started in January 2013, and it was just insanity. Luis Rodriguez went to, I want to say he went to the January one or the Feb. I think he went to the January one, the first one. And it was just insane. Then we had LA Times, and it just blew up after that. It was endless, like, energy just going into the space.
So tell us about the night that the LA Times came. You featured Luis Rodriguez. There was an earthquake in the garage, and or there was an earthquake all over the city. I mean, it wasn't just in the garage, but there was an earthquake, and your number one concern was that everyone was going to die in your garage.
And we don't have insurance.
And the LA Times, you don't have insurance. The LA Times was there to cover it.
It's funny because you remember that story, and it's like
I was there.
And like, I know only you and like 3 other people remember that day. Because I was just like, shit, if we all die, this is not going to be about a league open mic. This is gonna be about like 80 people that died in a fucking garage while listening to poetry. I was like, no, it was I got a little scared,
including the poet laureate, because Luis was the poet laureate at the time.
So when I hit up Luis, not only that, but Luis Rodriguez went with the intention to also promote his campaign, because he was running for governor of California.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah. Had your garage collapsed, it would have been called The Day the Poetry Died. You know, like
yeah, it was
a good song.
It was crazy. And the LA Times photographers were there like what, like looking up at the ceiling, all exposed. Oh my god, it was insane. But yeah, those first few months we had a few injuries. The concrete was all broken at one side, and it was like dirt. So I had a friend that almost broke her ankle. She had to go to the hospital because she twisted it so bad. And I was like, you know what? Fuck this. I did a call out. I put on Facebook, anybody want to come help me pour cement? I had never poured cement in my life. And like 8 dudes were like, I'm down, let's go. And I'm like, all right. And then I raised funds for audio equipment. Everybody donated like this to like help this space. And then everybody donated for the cement. And then I had like 8 guys right there, like sweating, like after 6 hours of like putting down the cement. And we did it, you know? So it was like, it's that corazón del pueblo energies, like, right? Like grassroots, for the people, by the people, for the people. It's like, it's been that since the beginning.
So tell us a little bit about the team that helps put Alivio together, past and present.
So like I said, the first one before it was Alivio, it was Selena who helped. She now owns Crucitas Deli and Cafe. She's been running down with that amazing coffee shop and deli with her mom for years now. So it was her. It was Anna, who's like a photographer, artist. It was Shelly and Natalie, who are Selena's cousins. So it was just us friends from high school that started it, that first one. And then I started Alivio completely like, as far as like really developing things and organizing it, it was like just me. But like I had the community's full on support. Like if I would have said I need $200 by next week to get this speaker, like people were already down, like because they saw what it was and they believed in it. So then next thing you know, we go into January, February, we're doing these events. And then my homegirl, Elizabeth Alcantar, who is right now the mayor of Cudahy, she's my friend at the time. And then she kind of links me up with this other mujer, and then we kind of just start talking. And then we create a collective called Southeast Los Angeles Collective. And this is where I knew Alivio was working because of the things that were being created outside of Alivio. Like these people were meeting at Alivio, and that's why, Matt, like space is so important. Corazón del Pueblo, Eastside Cafe, these spaces are so essential for the development of our community, for movements, like a space where people can meet and talk and collaborate and then create shit outside of it. That's how you know a space is working. So we started the Stella Co, right? Southeast LA Collective. A few months later, we were insane and we did the first ever gigantic like art walk in Southeast LA, like first time ever, like encompassing the city of Bell and Maywood, all through Atlantic. We like incorporated over 30 like visual artists. We had bands. We had Alivio open mic. We had over 200 people in the crowd. We engaged with over 20 local businesses, and people didn't know what an art walk was. They didn't know what the hell we wanted to do. They didn't understand what's the point of putting art. Like, I don't get how people are gonna come here. They're like, we got a map, we got a program. Like, we really had to educate a lot of people in our community because those things have never happened. Yeah. But the beautiful thing about it was that it was us. It was like people from here that were doing the work, and not some like abstract like out, entity that came in and did it for us. It was all.
Yeah, I want to get into talking about definitely about the vendors and about the festival. But before we do that, tell us about your host.
Sorry, I kind of stopped. Sorry about the who helps organize. So we did the art walk. Years later, shit hits the fan. And then I'm kind of just doing it solo. But then Citlali, Osuna, she's just been an incredibly important, essential part of Alivio because she helps me. She's been the vendor liaison for years already. I want to say 4 years or more. She organizes all the vendors. She really helps me like look for like kind of like scout for different like voices and talent. So she's been a gigantic part of it. Through her help and other people's help, we've done like LGBTQ open mics at Alivio. We've done all women events at Alivio, so people have just been super amazing, to take ownership and help out and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the work that Shilalik and yourself are doing with the vendors, bringing vendors to Alivio.
Yeah. So there was a time in Alivio where we didn't really have vendors, and we would have maybe like one or two like friends that like started asking, "Hey, can I sell my earrings?" I'm like, "Yeah," but then when Siglali came into the picture, she she's been vending for a long time. Her family has roots in swap meets, so she knows that like vending culture, and she knows a lot of vendors in and around LA. And she's like, "Hey, let me, organize some vendors." I was like, "Oh, that'd be dope." Like, so in the driveway, if you've never been to Alivia and you're listening to this right now, we have a pretty long driveway, and we've been able to fit around 20 something vendors. Usually though, regularly we'll have about 13, but there's been events where we have a lot of vendors. We're talking about vendors that are selling everything from handmade jewelry to like incredible like prints like by Caliarte, Cultivarte, like screen printed t-shirts, just like everything you can think of. We pretty much have a freaking like cultural swap meet going on while like the open mics happening, and it's all because of Siklali's like hard work and labor to organize all that. And now it's kind of like a well-oiled machine. Like we don't really, I feel like over the years we don't really have to like do endless promoting anymore like before. Like people just show up, they already know what it is, like they already know what's up, so like it makes it easier now. But yeah, she's held it down with the vendors, and now because of COVID-19 and the pandemic, I started thinking like, damn, like some people started opening up to me like, yo, I'm losing like money in this college and that college. I had all these spaces that I was gonna like do like hip hop or poetry. All the vendors lost all their events they're gonna vend at. So I was like, I wanted to start a mutual fund very early on, but I kind of didn't know how to do it. So I took like 2 weeks or 3 to develop it. And then I started on GoFundMe. So right now we've already raised over I want to say about $5,000. We've dispersed money to different people in this community, artists, vendors, hip hop artists, poets, all sorts of people in and around our community that have applied. And yeah, and if you're listening right now and you're okay with helping out, you have the means to, you can donate Venmo at Alivio Open Mic, or Cash App $ at Alivio Open Mic. Or we also have a GoFundMe campaign, tinyurl.com/Alivio GoFundMe. And yeah, man, people have just been freaking incredible. Like, like right now it's really tough. So I know a lot of people don't have, money to donate, but like just people have been sharing the crap out of the flyers. People have been sending it to people's DMs, because I can see on Instagram, I can see the analytics, like people are sending it to their people's DMs. And like one of the homies, Frank Rojas, he wrote an LA Times article about it, because that was his contribution. He's like, I want to help the campaign, I want to help in this way. I was like, oh damn, thank you. So he wrote an LA Times article. We were just featured on it, like I want to say 2 weeks ago. People have just been helping in every little way they can. It's been great.
Well, I want to get more into the campaign, how people can connect to it a little later, towards the end, so that it's still fresh in everyone's minds.
Yeah.
But like, so let's talk a little bit right now about the festival. What's the origin of that? How did it get started, and what have been some of
the Southeast LA Arts Festival?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
So that one, this one is going to be the third year we've been doing it. I want to say about 4 years ago, Anthony Rendon, who is an assembly member, the speaker, and he kind of represents many cities. A lot of them are here in Southeast Los Angeles. His staff reached out to me. They started going to Alivio. They started telling me like, hey, I work for Mr. Anthony Rendon, and there's an event coming up that is going to be sponsored by Anthony Rendon, and it's going to be in the LA River. And I was like, wait, what the hell, really? They're like, yeah. And they just kept going to Alivio because this is without being arrogant or pompous or anything. Alivio is literally the longest running open mic in Southeast LA. It's the longest running cultural art space in Southeast LA. It is. It's the consistently longest running space, and they kept going there, and then they hit me up. They're like, "Hey, we're gonna have our first meeting to plan out this event in the river." And at first, I was just like, "An event in the river? How are we gonna do this? Big old thing like?" And then all the people have been involved with Alivio, a lot of them started going to the meetings for the Southeast LA Arts Festival. And we just kept like developing plans, developing visions. We created committees. Some people more in tune with visual arts and galleries, some in tune with a second stage for like big bands, me for Alivio, Citlali in charge of like over 200 damn vendors. Like, damn, that's a lot. Like, it was just, so the first year we had, I want to say about 9,000 people in attendance. Alivio open mic was like one of the main stages. It was one of the two stages. And it was just insane. Like, I never in my life thought that were to happen. Like, I don't know. And when it comes to like the East Side, Boyle Heights and all these spaces, I feel like a lot of the younger people there are more like, I feel like they're like 10 steps ahead of us because of the Chicano moratorium and the history of those spaces. Like, these kids now that are like 19 in Boyle Heights, East LA, like, like their parents, a lot of them were fucking in the movement. So they grew up like instilling these ideas and values in their own children. And now they're growing up in like Boyle Heights and East LA, wanting to get the ball moving in their own ways. But for us in Southeast LA, our parents are like they're recent immigrants. Like, almost a big majority of our population is like immigrants. So they don't have that like Chicano like mentality. They're Mexicanos, they're like Salvadorians or Hondureños, like, like, so we have a different dynamic going on over here.
Yeah. But it seems like you're talking about, you go to Corazon. I mean, like, that story is very common of people from another part of the city going to like the traditional, like what they think is the heartland, the hub, right? Which is like Boyle Heights, East LA, City Terrace, even also down to degree, right? So that's kind of like, that's that, right? So you got people like, so you're coming from Southeast LA to there, but then you got people coming from like Montebello, people coming from La Puente, people wherever, all the way from Corona, like coming all the way out there to tap into their culture, their community, right? So they have to like, they have to drive 30 miles from home to tap into their community, so to speak. And so what you're doing is saying that like, no, it's right here.
Yeah. And that's what I mean by, when I started saying that phrase that really stuck, was when spaces don't exist, create them. When spaces don't exist, create them. And I would love it if there was an Alivio open mic in every fucking city. Like, that would be amazing on every block. But I feel like because of the history of Bell City, it's opened up doors for me. And, the city of Bell was drenched in corruption. Literally, we were nationwide news, international news. The little city of Bell was never in the news. Next thing you know, it's on CNN, MSNBC, Fox, and like all of this terrible corruption. And along comes little Alivio open mic, and like the city just like hugs it. Positive news for our city. Like, oh my God. And they just loved it. And they're like, yeah, we got to change the I guess the outlook of our city. But like, technically, we're breaking like, I don't know how many laws and rules and fucking ordinances, but it doesn't matter. Like, cops have been to Alivio only like once, and they said, hey, what's going on here? And I just looked at them and I'm like, community. And I just walked away and they left. Like, because that's all it is, though. At the end of the day, like, it's not a it's not a bad thing. Like, but it's an incredible thing, actually. Like, and I feel like I wish it was everywhere. But Matt, the reason why I started Alivio was because I had this feeling of like always extracting myself. Like, I always was extracting myself from my community to go share my story and poems with people that are not from my community, Santa Monica. I was like in like random spaces with a lot of white faces too. And I'm like, I appreciate you for listening to me, but I feel like the kids in my community need to listen to this. And like, that's when I got tired of it. I'm like, we need to start something here where we live. And, that's how Alivio came along. It was that feeling of always extracting myself from my community and not wanting to anymore.
So tell us about your parents and they how they too have gotten in on the vending game.
Oh my God. My mom and my dad, my mom especially, she's just a hustler. Like, she's fucking Mexican, dude. she's just like, if there's a way she can start like selling something, like, let's go. That's just her mentality. And once Iklali, like my mom had already sold food and my dad were selling some food, but once Iklali started bringing in the vendors, it became more of a like, hell yeah, we're gonna be selling art, selling food. So my parents just started like every month. My mom asked me this question, or my dad, ¿Qué quieres que haga, mijo? Like literally, like, what do you want me to make? And I'm like, I don't know, do whatever you want. So they'll do like anything, like tacos de papa, tacos de camarones, like freaking like nachos, carne asada nachos, pozole. Like I don't even. They've made so much stuff already, and like it's funny because it's kind of built its own little niche. Like there's people that go to Alivio and they're like, hey, what did your parents make today? Like, because I really want to like eat like homemade food today. I was like, okay, like some people come for Alivio just to hang out in the driveway and just talk with the vendors, chill. Some people go to Alivio to like be inside the garage the whole time. Some people like doing all of it. It's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
It's just morphed. It's just morphed and morphed and morphed into something so good.
yeah, yeah. So one of the regular attendees at Alivio is a gentleman by the name of Mateo Latosa. Can you tell us a little bit about this individual and your professional working relationship with him?
Yeah, Mateo is someone I met at Alivio years ago, and Mateo is actually one of the founding members of Southeast LA Collective. So Celaco, when we did the art walk 2013, Mateo was there. Mateo was, putting in work, like, and Mateo has a long history of putting in work in like Santa Barbara, like housing it, undocumented immigrants. Like he was in Mecha. Like he's been putting in like solid work for a long time, long time. He's very humble though, very modest. He rarely ever talks about it, but he's done a lot of great work. Anyways, Mateo, I started meeting him through Alivio. We started organizing together for the community. And then I find out years later, he composes scores for films, for like galleries, for museum. I'm like, how do you do all this? Like he does all of these incredible things. And next thing I know, oh yeah, he publishes book, he edits books. I'm like, what do you not do, dude? Like he just does everything. And then he's like, and then this leads to like him telling me, why don't you publish a book of poetry already? I was like, what the hell? Like, nah, like a book of poetry. I'm never gonna do that. And that's kind of how it started though. And then the book came along after, like years later. Yeah. But if it wasn't for Mateo, I don't think I would have my book out yet. Or maybe not at all. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a lot of what these have been collection of like oral histories about venues and presses. So I want to talk a little bit more about the press in a minute, but tell us right now about your book.
My book?
Yeah.
It is titled From My Blood, and shout out, thank you, Mateo. I appreciate you so much. I will always keep saying that because it's because of you that this is here in my hands right now. It is published by Powis Media. Mateo helped me edit it. And also the forward is by Lady Bosco, which I love because it's like a full circle deal, like she's the first person that ever saw me share my poetry at Speakeasy. And then she like wrote the forward for my first ever poetry book. But yeah, this is a book that I want to say took me a little over 2 years to make. I had already been compiling Word documents on my computer. I already had a lot of poems. But then I just started like developing this manuscript, and then over 100 and I don't know how many revisions later, I finally got the book. It took so long, and it was just it was damn. It's a long process, bro. Like I know you had done a book, but whoo, it is endless. Like once you think you're done with it, you're like, all right, it's done. Then you look at it again, you're like, damn it, there's one thing right there. We gotta fix that again. Like it's just a lot, but it's been an incredible journey, and now I'm just the COVID-19, the pandemic really did impact me as like a published author now, because um I was going to start touring and like booking all these events these months. I already had like a bunch of events lined up. Keep in mind, I haven't done any event for this book outside of Alivio. I only did one event. That's it. I haven't done anything else. And the book's been out since September now. So this pandemic really screwed up my plans as far as like getting this out there, selling copies, sharing the book, just reading the book. I had all these spaces booked, and then pandemic came along, everything gone. Like all these bookstores, even like Mola in Long Beach was gonna have my book and have me, and like that's done, and like all these other things have been postponed, or who knows. But yeah, it's been a journey.
All right. So like, me, and, I never stop working. So like, I'm gonna interrupt this interview to ask you a question. Interview paused. How'd you get your book in a mola?
I started Alivio. There's this mujer that no, I don't have my book at Mola. I was going to have my book at Mola, but because of this freaking pandemic, I don't have it at Mola. Okay, but I was, because this one mujer started going to Alivio, and she went to Cal State Long Beach. She's one time hit me up. She's like, hey, I know you got your hands busy. I like doing photography. Do you want me to help you do photography at Alivio once in a while? I was like, hell yeah, let's go. So keep in mind, I haven't seen this mujer, Alexa, in over like, I want to say 5 years. She hits me up during the time when I'm already out with the book. She's like, hey, I work at Mola, and I think your book would be great to have here, and like you could read here. I was like, whoa, that's how it happened, because of her going to Alivio and her knowing me. Yeah. But it's technically not, it's not there. There's nothing there.
All right, when this wraps up, man, I'm gonna need you to introduce her to this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because
I know.
I told you how to get into Espacio, so that's how this works, homie.
Let's get both of our books in there. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So anyways, so the book got it was having this momentum. The momentum interrupted, but now's the time to be for people to be sitting at home and reading, right?
Yes.
So why should they purchase your book? Why is your book the one? Why is your book? Why should they add this to the reading list? What's tell us about the book more.
I just feel like my book is densely packed with like narratives of growing up in a predominantly immigrant community, of being a young brown male, of like being that little boy that never thought you were gonna be in poetry. Like for people that look like me, my skin color, my background, like I'm sure a lot of us growing up, when we ever thought of poetry and when it was introduced to us in classrooms, it was always like an old white man. And like this book is like is resistance against that norm. So I grew up thinking I would never do poetry, or because I never saw myself in these old white men. So I just think my book is important for people that have grown up with those feelings of feeling marginalized, of feeling like they're out of the norm, of also having that righteous anger against institutions that perpetuate injustice and racism and like persecution of our gente, like our hardworking families that we know here are not fucking criminals. They're just humans trying to survive and thrive for their own families. Like, if you feel any of these things, this book speaks to those issues. And not only that, but it also has like humor drizzled around it. It also has like stories of like national like news, like school shootings, because I'm an educator. That to me touches me on a different level. It just has like coming of age stories that are not told in like literature really, like especially for like Latino kids, like brown kids. Like, so the book is dense, it's big for a poetry book. It's a pretty big book. It's like 186 pages. So it has a little bit of everything, but it definitely starts with like boom, a fist to the face, like with like passion and anger, um that represents gente in our community. I'm talking about the vendors we see out here, you know, selling elotes, selling raspados, like, and just knowing that they're like still putting in mad work right now during these times. And it's about family, bro. It's just a lot.
You share a poem?
Yeah, yeah, I'll share a poem. I'm gonna share the first one, the one I just talked about right now. Orange in his hand. I see two men sweat at the exit of the freeway. One is brown and burnt from the sun rays. The other is white with an American flag stitched across his trucker hat. They both wear dirty clothes. They both burn to hold a little green. One sells oranges, walking up and down the street. The other holds a sign that reads, "I'm hungry, help me eat." And I feel for both of them, but I only admire one. The one who hands oranges in bags to tired faces, who chases cars for his change, who counts pennies for a profit to keep his apartment. The one whose wife wakes before sunrise to walk through Los Angeles streets screaming, "Tamales, tamales," with the 4-year-old daughter at her side. The mother who crossed over 4 years earlier so her daughter wouldn't have to sell tamales with the baby at her side. The father tells his son never to beg, but to work hard for the bread. So the son sells Cheetos at his high school and gets called Beaner for not owning name brand clothes. A son who must bring dollars before good grades because rent is 2 weeks late. A son who will one day want to hold a gun to the head of some liquor store clerk only to remember his father's words, "Mijo." I said work hard for the bread. Rent is 2 weeks late. So the family breaks the law to have a job and they lift roses to the sky, hoping someone passing by is falling in love again. So the family takes elotes to the neighborhood projects, hoping the niños are hungry. But the news says this family is here to take my job, my seat in school, and my country. But the only thing I see them taking is the risk of being handcuffed, broken, and deported in the name of family, in the name of love, in the name of trying everything to stay above the water. And that is why I admire the man with an orange in his hand, a fireball of hunger in his palm. Thank you. Orange in his hand.
Yeah.
That's why the book has oranges, but the oranges represent really sacrifice, hard work, and the connections we make. Those sacrifices for our family, for the kids in our community. That's why the book in the cover art by, shout out to Jessica, beautiful cover art. That's why it has oranges in the hand, sacrifice.
Yeah. Hey man, let's hear another.
Another one? All right.
It's time to move units, man. Come on. This is
Hey, you know what? Like, I know the pandemic has really messed up my ability to go to spaces and share poetry, but I felt like once the pandemic hit, I feel like my sales went up again. It was like, you know, people are home. People want to, huh?
Yeah, people are home.
People are home and like they don't want to fry their brains on Netflix all day. So they want to do other things too. This one is one that I really like reading right now because I have a 1-year-old son now. So I just enjoy reading this one right now. Teach your son. Go ahead and teach your daughter how to throw a right cross and split the lip of any boy that touches her, or how to break the nose of any man that calls her a slut or a hoe. Go ahead and send her to karate, judo, and kickboxing classes. Make her as tough as the streets of Los Angeles, where homies are the hungriest. How to defend herself with a set of keys, buy her pepper spray, a pocket knife, and a gun when she's old enough. But more importantly, sit your son down and speak to him about boundaries and respect. Teach your son about the power of his touch, to keep his hands to himself when he hears words like no or stop. Teach your son that catcalling women is everything from annoying to threatening, but never flattering. Teach him to never treat women like flesh up for auction. Teach him to never be the mouth that spits venom at victims. Teach him to be in tune with his feelings. Teach him that acts of kindness are never vouchers for sex, to be redeemed when he wants it. Teach him that rejection is simply a seed for self-reflection. Teach your son how to speak and how to listen, to value his empathy over his brutality. So before you teach your daughter how to crack a cranium, teach your son all of these lessons, because without a perpetrator, there is no victim. So that one is one that I'm going to be sharing with Elias, my son.
How old is he now?
He is 18 months. And yeah, he's been just chaotic, trying to break the house in two. Yeah, my goal right now is just to keep him alive, literally. Like every second of every day, I'm like, don't hit that TV, it's gonna fall on you. Don't hit the window, you're gonna fall out. Stop. Oh my God. Yeah, it's been a ride, but it's really helped me it's really guided how I'm reevaluating kind of like my work, and like even poetry, and like I don't know, just a lot of things. It's changing the way I see how I can use my agency as a man, as a brown man, to help other men in my community. And by helping other men, I really feel like it'll help our communities and our streets be safer. That's what that poem's about. Teach your son. Too often we want to teach girls, don't do this, don't walk here, don't dress like that, don't. And I get it, like, you know, like you want to take care of your kids, but also we need to be teaching the young kids in our community, don't do these things that perpetuate violence upon other kids, you know?
Yeah. Hit us with one more, and then we'll do all the plugs.
All right. This one is, let's see. Actually, I'll do this one because I feel like this one taps into that theme of like men and masculinity, and how we don't have to find balance. We become the boxes that our fathers, we stay in the boxes that our fathers, you know, kept trying to keep us in. So this one's titled, I Am a Man. The image of a father, a brother, an uncle, a son who was supposed to be trusted, but became the blade against the skin, a tormentor instead of a lover, an abuser instead of a friend. How do women trust, love, accept this face again, these hands, this mind, so powerful, so fragile, men so conditioned to control, men so conditioned to dominate, raised to suffocate our fears, to bury our tears, taught to ignore the ways our fingertips stain our sisters, our mothers. Our Mother Earth bleeds from our wars, our guns, our tanks, our bombs, our conquests. Smiles die from our human trafficking, our street harassment, our abuse, our patriarchy. I am a man holding this reality inside of these hands, a legacy of toxicity etched in the valleys of my fingerprints, due to the glory of playing hero in every single story. We've never known silence like our sisters. I want to shatter traditional mirrors and uncover the meaning of power. What is stronger than a man willing to kill to conquer a land? It is a man unlearning the poison of his past, a man building peace with his hands, a man allowing a boy to cry and stand. I am a man filling the hollowed spaces of my heart with truth, collapsing into myself, breaking through the ceremonial thoughts of my supremacy. I am a man growing gardens with my voice. I am a man rooting for other men to be diamonds instead of dirt. I am a man celebrating the softness in Matt Cedillo's caress. Brothers, we are more than the carnage that came before us. We are more than the cages our fathers stuffed us inside of. We are more beautiful than we have allowed ourselves to be. Brothers, it is time we embrace our full humanity.
You got me off guard there. Yeah,
You're in the book. You're in the
brazos,
book.
man. Brazos. Yeah, man. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Virtual
Yeah.
hug. Virtual
Yeah.
hug.
All right. So, you know, we're winding down now. Tell us about Alivio's still going. So tell us about where to connect to Alivio and where to do it.
Yeah, I've been doing
and the campaign, the artist campaign.
Yeah. I'll do Alivio first. So if you're in need of like human interaction, you want to see a space where you can share your poetry or your art, I do Alivio on Instagram Live. I've been doing it every single Friday. I've only taken 2 Fridays off. I couldn't do it those Fridays, but I've been doing it every Friday from 7 p.m. to about like 8:30. Yeah, and it's funny because now we're getting people I'm not how you want to read it, but it's pretty incredible. We're doing it to Instagram Live. We're doing it to stay connected, to help our mental health, and also to keep promoting our campaign. This is Alivio Emergency Relief Fund. We have about $5,000 right now, and apply for it if you get something and all of that. We just find the campaign is tinyurl.com/Alivio GoFundMe. You can donate there. You can share that there. You can see it, what it's about. Send it to your network, fill it out. And these funds are very targeted. It's like it's only targeting people that have been to Alivio and have used that video as a space to promote their art, to share their art, to sell their craft, anything. So it's a very targeted mutual fund. And it's actually helping a lot of artists here in Southeast LA and around Southeast LA. We have a lot of adopted Stella spirits. It's like people that have made Stella and Alivio like they're part of the Alivio family. But I want to say thank you for giving me space and the time and the energy to share my poetry and kind of like what I'm about.
And where can we buy the book?
Hello?
Where can we buy the book?
Matt,
there we go.
Could you hear me?
It sounded a little bit like you were underwater, but I could kind of hear it. If you
hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. I think my wife connected the Bluetooth speaker and like it, I don't know where you're, hold on.
All right.
So
yeah, I could hear you, but it sounded
like. Can you hear me, Matt?
No, I can hear you fine
Matt,
now.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, I can't hear you, but I'm just going to let you know where you can get the book. So the book, you can get it on lulubooks.com, but it's better if you buy it from me. because I'll sign it, I'll dedicate it to you, and I'll ship it to you. So, and I'll add in like a Alivio sticker and a From My Blood sticker. So buy it through me. Repeat the tiny URL. It's tinyurl.com/Alivio GoFundMe. And as far as my book, please, if you want to follow me, follow the work I'm doing. I'm at Eric Etzli. It's ERICEZTLI. Right there, you can hit me up for a copy of a book. I can dedicate it, sign it, ship it to you. I also have another page that I manage called at Bloom Homie. And basically, it's just me and a collective of men reimagining masculinity in current times, a masculinity that benefits us as men, type of balance in our lives that helps our communities in the long run. And that's kind of like what I'm really passionate about is like speaking to that positive, healthy masculinity. I can't hear you at all. So,
Well,
thank
okay,
you, Matt Cedillo.
so I'm gonna give you a thumbs up. I'm gonna say things. I promise they're good words. I promise they're kind words. I'm gonna type you a message right now. I promise you they are kind
Thank you,
words.
Matt.
So thank you, Eric. I really appreciate you spending this time with us. You can watch us later to make sure I didn't say anything bad. Appreciate you, and everyone, go to Leave the Open Mic on the web. So it's a great space. Thank you, Eric.